service of CNC Worldwide.
The Daily is a service of CNC Worldwide and Jib Jab greetings. I'm Bud Lowell, your full AccuWeather forecast right up on the top of this CNC local news page. Let's get to the good news first. New York State's economy added 2,900 private sector jobs in September for a total of 107,200 so far this year. Rochester accounted for 8,900 of those new jobs, an increase of just over 2%. And the Rochester area led the upstate metro regions in job creation, adding more than twice as many new jobs as Albany, which comes in the number 2 spot. The State Labor Department says there are now 7,337,000 New Yorkers holding down jobs. That's an all-time high. They also say New York is one of only 5 states that have regained all the private sector jobs they lost in the recession. Statewide, the seasonally adjusted unemployment rate for New York dropped a fraction of a point to 8.9%. The number of people out of work dropped by 23,200 to 848,000. Raw numbers for the individual cities aren't out yet, but the adjusted jobless rate for all of upstate is 7.6%. Another piece of good economic news, Rochester has been hoping for years that Southwest Airlines would someday fly into the ROC, and it now appears that day is only 6 months off. Monroe County Executive Maggie Brooks says Southwest plans to convert the existing AirTran operations at the Greater Rochester International Airport in April of 2013. Brooks says she is proud to announce that the Greater Rochester International Airport will become a fully functional Southwest Airlines market this coming spring. The company will announce its planned flight schedule on Monday. The ROC is one of 4 cities in the nation that Southwest Airlines is converting to full destinations next spring as part of its ongoing merger with AirTran. Documents released by the Boy Scouts of America Thursday name more than a dozen people from Monroe and the other counties surrounding Rochester as suspected pedophiles. A court case in Oregon forced the Boy Scouts to open its ineligible volunteer files, also known as the perversion files. The BSA began keeping these in 1959 in an effort to keep pedophiles from becoming scout leaders or volunteers. These are the earliest of the records to be made public. They date from 1959 to 1985. We counted 15 names of men from Rochester and the surrounding counties, a dozen of them from the immediate Rochester area and the suburbs. A story published by the AP says there are 83 cases in all of western New York. As these records go back more than 50 years, we don't know the current status of these men. Some were single, others were married with children, and they covered the spectrum in education and career from janitors to engineers. Old court records and incident reports are included in the files, so we can see that 7 of the 12 Monroe County men were tried and convicted of various abuse-related crimes, although the language of the day is sometimes vague about what happened. For instance, this page from 1964 says a then Grease man was convicted of endangering morals in Monroe County Court. Under state law of the time, that would have been a misdemeanor. In keeping with other media, we aren't publishing the names, but if you want to look, they're in an online database. You can find it by Googling Boy Scout perversion files. The Boy Scouts webpage says prompt reporting of inappropriate conduct with youth is required of all scout leaders. The BSA records such allegations in the ineligible volunteer files, whether or not the adults involved were scout leaders or the youth involved were scouts. By being proactive and acting upon many kinds of information, including tips and hearsay that could not be put in court, the BSA has successfully kept dangerous or potentially dangerous individuals as well as inappropriate role models out of its organization. While that is undoubtedly the case, it's also true that sometimes the files didn't work. They also show that local scouting officials in many communities nationwide sometimes helped cover up allegations of child abuse, something scouting argued was necessary or victims and witnesses would be afraid to come forward. A suspended Monroe County jail deputy has pleaded not guilty in county court to felony DWI and other charges resulting from a car crash several months ago in Hamlin. Sergeant Paul Dozer lost control of his car and rolled it in a field. Nobody was seriously hurt, but Dozer had a 6-year-old child as well as another passenger in the car, and the sheriff's department said he was driving drunk and speeding at the time. The prosecution says Dozer's blood alcohol level was .18. Dozer was charged with 6 violations, including the new Leandra's law for driving drunk with a child in the car, and he'll be back in court in mid-December. Also back in court in December, another local man who pleaded not guilty in connection with a crash in the town of Sweden that killed his girlfriend. Tyler Carbonaro, 21 years old, was charged with vehicular manslaughter, reckless driving, and DWI in the crash that killed 24-year-old Mallory Hale. The prosecution says Carbonaro was driving drunk in February when he crashed successively into a utility pole, a tree, a pickup truck, and then a house. His girlfriend was killed. He's back in court December 6th. The Rochester Police Department is investigating the death of a person whose body was spotted by a pedestrian Thursday. It was found under the Smith Street Bridge near the high falls of the Genesee. Police say the dead man was African American, but they haven't identified the body or any details yet about what killed him. The New York State Health Department says it's identified a case of illness caused by contaminated steroids produced at the New England Compounding Center in Framingham, Massachusetts. A Nassau County resident received steroid injections for back pain from one of the recalled lots produced by NECC. That drug was contaminated with a common fungus that's caused a number of people around the nation to get meningitis. Although this patient got sick, the health department says he did not get meningitis. He's being successfully treated for the infection. 3 different medical practices around New York received shipments of the contaminated drugs, including Rochester Brain and Spine in Rochester. To the left of this player window, links to these and other stories, and at the bottom of the page, links you can use. Post us news items you've written, things you've heard or want checked out. We're also a community news resource at CNC News, so we want to know about your birth and wedding announcements, your business openings, all that sort of thing. Just post it right to us, and you'll see it here. Next news as it happens, updates when necessary. I'm Bud Lowell, CNC News.